here on Hangouts live with Margaret. And tonight you are our special guest, and we'll be talking about how to get out of your own way. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Wow, I can actually see all the chat messages here. Didn't think I was gonna be able to see that. It's awesome.
Yes, this is really cool, and we are live. So, Zion, you are a successful 23-year-old entrepreneur. That's quite impressive. Most 23-year-olds do not have their own business. And you just showed me a virtual tour of your office, which is really cool.
Yeah,
And
you definitely need to come visit sometime.
I am going to take you up on that invitation. And here, there's a really cool mural behind your head. And when you're CEO of your own company, you can do that. That's something you can definitely do. So, Zion, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Like you said, I definitely identify as an entrepreneur. I have no idea what else I'd be doing otherwise. I started off my first company when I was still in school when I was 19. Had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And then, so it was a wild ride along the way. I did a couple of the fun things. I worked with companies like Dell, running their social media management campaigns. I helped to launch Juice Tank, which is this co-working space that I'm sitting in right now. And and then since then, I've also been a meetup organizer, been really, really active and involved in the startup community. Been trying to write. I don't think I can call myself a writer until I get some more consistency on that end. And yeah, now I'm having a lot of fun just getting back in the groove of things.
That's awesome. It's really exciting. That's a lot of exciting stuff that you're doing in addition to entrepreneurship there. But tell me, how did you start your first business?
Well, it's actually a really funny story because I I actually lied to get my first job because they asked if I could put up a e-commerce website for them, and it was a shopping cart website because they wanted to get some more online sales. And I told them, yeah, of course I could do it, right? So I got the job, and then I pretty much Googled my way and figured everything out, and then really, really just tried to, I called in a lot of favors because I didn't know how to do anything code related. I didn't know, I'm not a developer. I'm still not a developer. I had no idea what I was doing, so I was very, very lucky because now I know that was actually one of the more difficult platforms to get up. So I think it's like a miracle that it actually did. And that store used to sell Rutgers apparel and Greek clothing, so clothing for fraternities and sororities. And all of a sudden, finally the website was actually making money, which was amazing. And then the owner just decides he wants to shut down one day. And I was like, okay, well, what are all these Greeks going to do, right? What are all these people going to do? So I said, you know what? Why don't I just take this part, just the part that sold to the Greeks, to the fraternity sororities, and just make another business out of it. So that is pretty much how I got started. I just saw the opportunity, and it kind of more or less just showed up in front of me. I didn't really have too many second thoughts to it. And I took like whatever money I had from like a refund check that we got from school, and it was like less than $1,000, probably like maybe around like $500, and that's how everything got kicked off.
Wow. So you started this business while you were in college, correct?
Yeah. It was my sophomore year.
Okay. And what was that like for you being this young entrepreneur in college? What kind of experiences or challenges did you have?
Well, it's interesting because at the time I didn't really identify as an entrepreneur. I feel like entrepreneurship and what being an entrepreneur really meant was something that I was still coming to terms with. At that point, I was just a person that started a business, right? And it was extremely challenging because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I made every mistake that I possibly could have. I got extremely lucky in some cases. Like, for example, we actually had a storefront because when I work in tech now. So when I talk to a lot of people and I said that I used to work in custom apparel, they're like, oh, so you used to run a website? I'm like, no, I had a actual storefront where I actually had to talk to people, believe it or not, right? So there was a store owner that just moved in, and he was having some trouble getting some people in the store itself. And I was like, hey, I can get every single like college student here that's in a fraternity and sorority. Just give me some space for a couple months, and that's how I got my first space. So a lot of things kind of just happened naturally, and then of course, I've done a lot of like dumb things also. Like I remember like our entire first systems were like all paper based because I just didn't know any better. Like what's record keeping, right? I'd even like do any accounting because I didn't know like that was a thing. I didn't know that existed. And man, yeah, and it's really funny because I've been to a lot of fabric stores. Like I'm the only guy that I know, or the only person in my friend circle that I've met that's ever like been to a fabric store. Well, at least that's a male, right? And yeah, like I just Googled where I was supposed to go, and I found something that was like, yeah, the models from next, what is it, America's Next Top Model or something. They're like, yeah, they went to this fabric store to like buy all their fabrics for the show, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. Then it must be good, right? So I went in there and I bought something that was like $50 a yard, and
Whoa.
yeah, expensive. And then we walked a little bit, and then I all of a sudden found these other stores, and I'm finding things like less than $10 a yard. And it was funny because the one that was like $50 a yard, it actually never sold. Like no one ever chose it. So it was so mistakes like that. Just you just learn by doing.
Yeah, see, lots of trial and error there, but you were very resourceful. I mean, using Google and trying to figure stuff out. That's really cool. And learned a little expensive lesson there for you, but you've learned, you moved on, and you saw the $10 per yard fabric. But tell me, so what was your social life like at this time?
Let's see. It was actually not that bad. It was at this point in my life, I was actually still in a fraternity. So I was a president of my fraternity at the time. So we were partying like every week, so I was like trying to do that, and so it was a lot of fun. I definitely had a lot of friends around me all the time. I was hanging out with people a lot more than I probably should have. And yeah, every weekend, like instead of working on the business, we kind of just like had a lot of fun. And so social life didn't lack, at least at that point. Definitely got a lot worse as time passed on.
Okay. When you say social life got a lot worse as time passed on, you want to care to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I told you, like along the way, we started Juice Tank, which is this back here. So every Friday night I used to have a party, and then that changed when I started Juice Tank. When, for example, like the walls you see behind me, we were actually building them at like 2 a.m. one day, right? Because the artists were coming in to make the murals the next day. And we were like painting them white so that they could actually like, make the murals and everything. And then it kind of and then once the place opened, I was going to school full time. I had a girlfriend at the time. I was the president of my fraternity. I was running my first business, and then I was running this business, and I was also organizing those meetups, those monthly meetups I was talking about. And then at one point we were even organizing like TEDx Rutgers. So so I literally just worked for probably like 120 hours a week, and like sleeping every other day. When I did sleep, it was like probably like 4 hours at a time. And then I completely neglected all my friends, like all my personal relationships and everything for that matter.
Well, seems like you had no time. I mean, you were wearing a lot of different caps, and you were also a student. So one word comes to mind: burnout. Were you experiencing any burnout?
Well, at the time, it was kind of like, it was really interesting because that year that I was doing all this stuff, I actually like gave up drinking and smoking for the year, because I used to be like cigarette smoker and all this other stuff. And so I was like on this like crazy productivity binge, right? So I was like, I changed all my personal habits, a lot of my morning rituals and everything like that. So I was like, I thought that by doing all this stuff I wouldn't burn out, right? But eventually I kind of like let a lot of that stuff go to the wayside. And then I realized that I was kind of like, after our busy season was over, which that's another crazy story. I like started coming into Juice Tank here and pretty much like sitting here on my monitor, just like looking at my computer and just kind of like mindless, right? And next thing I know, the day's over.
Well,
And that kind of happened for a solid like month to 2 months while I just kept asking myself like, oh, what am I doing with my life? And I didn't realize that I actually had burned out by then, which was kind of the scary part, right? Which I just had absolutely no clue. That's actually what happened.
so what did you do to kind of recharge yourself, to get back on focus and to shift things from that period of time where you were experiencing burnout?
Um, Man, that's a good question. Um, Honestly, at first, I wasn't doing much because I didn't even know, kind of like I was so out of tune with myself because I just went from this like crazy amount of like work to all of a sudden not having that crazy amount of work. So it just gave me a lot of time and space to think. So I was like really, really just stuck in my own head. So yeah, I mean, for probably the next year to a year and a half, I was kind of just, unaware and stuck. And I didn't realize that I was kind of burnt out and depressed and yeah. And then I thought that I got better because I was feeling a lot better. Um, and then I like started a new company, so I was like, all hyped up and everything because I left Juice Tank after that. I left a bunch of other things, and yeah, it was just really crazy. Because after I left, then I started the new company, and then that was probably like the worst decision to make because there was such a misalignment between that new company and everything I wanted to do. And then yeah, that company ended up failing pretty badly, and I just yeah. So I would say that I'm kind of like just getting off of that now because that was only about like a year and a half ago.
Okay, so you had some burnout. You realized that you started a new company that was totally out of alignment with yourself, and you're now rebounding a little bit back from that. So, can you tell me what what was it that helped you to come out of that? Because you experienced some success,
Hmm.
then you went downhill a little bit, and now you're coming out of that slump.
Sure.
How did you manage that transition, like coming up out of it?
Um, I think the first thing is to realize that you're even in it, right?
Hmm.
Kind of like that recognition stage, and to just have that self awareness of the fact that um, that you are in that state where you are depressed, where because I woke up day after day just not having any level of excitement. Like no matter what anyone told me, I just wouldn't get excited about anything anymore. And I realized that I literally felt that I was asleep while I was awake, and it was really
Wow.
the worst feeling. And what actually happened was I went to Boulder, Colorado, and it was for a group called Maverick Next, and it was for entrepreneurs under the age of 25 who have started at least a six-figure business. And so I was all of a sudden just surrounded by all these ridiculously ambitious people that are my age, and it was kind of like a wake-up call for me because it was just like all of a sudden I was just surrounded by all this like greatness, right? All these like crazy ambitious people, and I felt so under accomplished.
Well,
And um, well, that's what I kept telling myself at the time. It's like, whoa, like all these people are doing big things, and here I was just in a rut, and we do that to ourselves though, is we tell ourselves that we're not, that we're not as good as other people or whatever it is, and I was definitely at that stage, and but seeing that and just being surrounded by so many good people and so much love and a lot of like really conscious people, I think kind of helped to start awaken me and to give me a lot of perspective that I just didn't have at the time.
Okay. So did you do you have a mentor?
I do now. When I have many mentors now. I didn't have that when I started my first company at all.
Okay.
And even when I had people like reach out to me and ask me, if I did need help with anything, again, I didn't know what I didn't know, so I didn't know how to ask for help. And I also didn't think that people were willing to help me, because I grew up with pretty much everyone telling me in the world, telling me that you're on your own, that no one cares about you, that, people are out to get you. It's a dog eat dog world, and no one's going to help you, right? And of course, that's all false, right? And and Juice Tank was really, when I got involved with Juice Tank, that's the first time I really got involved with some really solid mentors, and that's when I grew my network pretty significantly, from almost like 0 to like 2000x, like 3000x, right? And yeah, then all of a sudden, I just had all these people keep on reaching out to me saying, Zion, like whenever you need anything, phone call away, or just like let me know. And I feel absolutely blessed to be in the situation I am now, to be able to kind of call upon that perspective at any time.
What was one of the greatest lessons? I don't know if lessons is the right word that I should use here, but what was one of the greatest things that a mentor said to you that was like a turning point for you, that struck a chord, and an aha moment, perhaps?
Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
It's okay. So something that a mentor said to you that, struck a chord in you and made a difference, made a difference?
Sure. Yeah. I think so I used to be like a really, really big, like, asshole, like just a really big jerk, like everyone that I used to work with and around, I used to put people down a lot. Like I was very, very condescending, very arrogant. And I like literally made people feel terrible. Right. So one of my mentors, now my partner, Charlie, sat me down with some of the other, with 2 other folks, and said, Zion, you have people that look up to you, and you need to remember that your network today is going to be your network 10 years from now. Wow. And when you're not in the room, like, how do you want them to talk about you? What do you want them to say? What's the story that you want them to tell? And how do you want them to feel, right? Because right now, you have the opportunity to lead, and you have the opportunity to be a leader, but you're just, you're just an asshole. Like, you're really just like, you're just like this, you're just putting, that's just no way to treat people, right? And that was a really big wake-up call moment for me, because I didn't even realize what I was doing, right? Because the way that I viewed it at the time, I was like, yeah, like, we're all the same age, whatever. Like, I expect them to be like here, like right with me. Like, why aren't they? Right? Which is obviously the wrong way to think about it. But at the time, it was just like, at the time, it was just, I expected everyone to kind of like be playing on the same level, or the same, and because they weren't, I instead of bringing them up, I kind of kept breaking them down, right? So I would say that was the biggest turning point moment for me. And then, I got a lot more perspective on other things after that. I realized that I was extremely pessimistic, right? I was, I was very reactive. I had a very reactive personality. I got mad at, like, when something happened, I got so angry about things. Like, I used to just yell a lot. Like, I used to yell a lot. And yeah, then, that that was probably like within like a week, I kind of like realized that I just had to change, everything that I was doing. Like, I literally was that person that said, it's better not to hope, because then it'll just hurt less.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Big turning point for you there.
Yeah, it was really, really significant.
Yeah. it's really important that, treating people a certain way and building them up, we also encourage loyalty. And they go to bat for us. So that's really important. I'm glad he was able to give you that insight.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you could tell me, so you've had a lot going on. I neglected to ask you, can you tell me a little bit about juice plant?
Oh, Juice Tank?
Yes, juice tank.
Yeah. So Juice Tank is a co-working space and a startup incubator, and it was built on the kind of like the foundation of mentorship. Like, how do we give back and provide mentorship for startups and for others that just simply don't have it, right? And I knew that problem all too well from my first company because I know how painful it was to run and then grow my first company. So this was kind of something that I was very passionate about in terms of just how can we give back, right? So Juice Tank was created exactly for that reason, to be able to provide office space, to be able to build that community that really kind of like shares in the ups and downs, because entrepreneurship is such a roller coaster. But your friends don't always get it, right? Like unless you're kind of in it, then people just don't understand, and it's not an easy conversation you can have with people that aren't kind of like on that same journey with you.
You are also the co-founder of 99 Robots, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So you currently have Juice Tank and 99 Robots going on. Are there any other ventures that you have going on?
No. I learned my lesson, one thing at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you manage to stay focused? I'm sure as a successful entrepreneur that tons of people shoot things past you all the time. I'm pretty sure that you have friends who are like, hey, Zion, can you jump in on this with me? How do you manage to stay focused and cut all this other stuff out of the way? Like, how do you decide or filter?
I mean, it's pretty easy, I think. It's easy now, like now that I have the perspective, because I am so afraid of burning out again. Okay. That I hold my space and my time and my mind space and my consciousness just so like dear to me now, right? And I know that I have an entire team that's relying on me to be the best version of me that I can, and that we are all working towards that same goal. So just like A, knowing what that is, and B, reminding myself what it is. And if any conversation or any venture or any like project or whatever doesn't serve moving the needle on exactly what I want to do right now, then you just have to say no, right? And that's really something I had a really tough time struggling with for a while, was just telling people no, because I thought then, it was kind of like I like tipped way over this scale, right? I went from like being an asshole to like being like way too nice and like way too giving with my time and way too generous with my time, and that was the absolute worst thing that I could have done also. So the power of no, right? Just saying no.
The power of no. Okay. So Joshua had a question there. He said, I'm just going to, it's not Q&A time, but I thought it was pretty interesting before we got too far. And he said, do you think it's possible to work 100+ hours during the week without burning out? How does the Musk master do it?
Yeah. Elon's like a personal hero of mine, right? I remember the first time I heard about him, like, I couldn't, I was just speechless. Like, I was just watching this video about how he launched PayPal and then SpaceX and Tesla. This was like in my intro to entrepreneurship class when I was 19, while I was in the middle of starting my first company. And you know what, I think that it's not possible, really. Like, he does work a lot of hours, but the reason he's able to do that is A, he loves what he does. Right? Like, you have to absolutely love what you do. And B, he's surrounded with himself with some of the best people in the world. And I think that's really like the trick, right? Is to like be able to build that kind of like build those people around you so that they can support you, and that when you do need that time and that space for yourself, you have it.
So, so the interview today, that to meet the, the heart of the matter here is, how do we stop getting in our way? So many people want to do so many different things, and we are our biggest enemies usually,
Yeah.
either by the stories we're telling ourselves or the excuses that we have. Even, doing so many different things, stops us from doing things that we really want to do. It's almost like it's a form of procrastination,
Sure.
doing many different things. So tell us, Zion, how do we stop getting in our own way? How do we get out of our own way?
I mean, that's a pretty broad question. I mean, I think the first thing is like figuring out what you want and just having a lot of clarity around what that is, and just kind of being very clear in your intentions, right? Because I think that's really the first step, is just figuring out what you want. Because a lot of people think they want something when they really don't. They kind of like the idea of having something or being someone, or being able to tell a certain story or being able to say certain things. So that's why they want to do things. So I think the first thing is kind of just like making sure that you're not rationalizing or justifying why you want to do what you want to do, and it's actually something that you do want to do. And then secondly would be, you just have to think of, what is the one thing I could do today, right? Like, you can make the massive to-do list of 20 things. I mean, I'm still guilty of doing that at times, but you can really only get one big thing done every single day. And whatever the scariest thing is, I think you should just like write it down, like what you're most scared of to do that day, and you should just do it. And every day you'll just start to, like, even if you see like that 1% change every single day, I think that's really like how you can get started. And that's really the most difficult part, right? I mean, okay, so starting is I think it's like, starting is easy. It's like, and then there's like two ways to look at it, right? I think starting is easy, and then like keeping to it's kind of hard, right? And then a lot of people have the other problem where starting's really easy, starting's really hard, and then they can keep to it pretty well after they start. But I was sitting in a talk with the founder of Quitzy, and they were they ran like diapers.com and babies.com. They sold to Amazon for something like $600 million, right? It's
Wow.
absolute craziness. But he said something like really interesting, and it's a quote that I still think about all the time, which is he's like this is literally built into the natural law that governs our world, right? And Newton's second law, right? Like, what is it? It's if an object at rest stays at rest, an object in motion, an object at rest will always stay at rest. An object in motion will always stay in motion unless acted on an outside force, right?
Okay.
And what that means is kind of like, it's like, yeah, if you don't ever get started, you'll kind of stay like right where you are. But then once you do get started, you take that step and you take that next step, and then you start hitting momentum. And when you start hitting momentum, like, that's like, you just feel it. You just feel like everything starts to like, move out of your way. Everything starts to line up one right after another. And you just know, right, that when you have it. And then at that point, you're the only one that could stop yourself from doing whatever it is that you want to do. And, fortunately and unfortunately, taking that first step, right, like making that decision to actually like move towards it. So, that's just something that's always stuck with me, because, that excitement of that, once you have that momentum, it's so easy to like get there, but to like ride it and to continue riding it, and to like just let go of your fears, because we're so irrational. Like, people are so irrational. Like, we don't even give ourselves a freaking chance sometimes. It's just like, oh, what if this happens? What if this happens? But, fact of the matter is, it hasn't, and it won't, right? And, I'm a big believer of self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, if you say it, then it is.
So am I.
So, yeah, you just got to like think about, why you want it, how you're going to feel if you did have it, and then just get started. I think it's like the biggest thing that you need to do to get out of your own way.
That is so true. I mean, we tell ourselves such stories all the time that it really has nothing to do with reality. You know, it's just we sometimes can be our biggest and worst enemy. So how exactly, let's say that you're about to encounter something new or difficult or just something, but it's on your to-do list, right? And a fear comes up, as we all do. They always will come up.
Mhm. What comes up? I'm sorry.
A fear, just a fear for something new and different that you're about to do.
Okay.
How exactly do you stop that fear and get out of your own way? What are some things you do?
Um, man. Well, this is definitely something that I feel like that I struggled with a lot in the last year. So from the time I was like 19 to like 20, almost like 22, I felt like I got like so much done. And then after that, after I burned out and everything, and I did kind of essentially fail, right? Then I was like really scared to do anything else. And the only thing that you could really do is like most of the things that we do is kind of we can't tell the future, right? Like none of us can tell the future. Like you know you don't have a crystal ball. Like I can't ask you what my future holds for me. You don't know what your future holds for you, right? And everything that we want to do and everything that we can do is externally verifiable. So the only thing that you can do is do it. Just do it, get it done, and put it out there and let the world judge, right? And like let the world judge and see how far it actually has gone instead of you being the person to kind of like not even let yourself get started in the first place. So I think that's really my only answer to that is you just got to like do it and just see what you got to do, because even if you do fail, the one thing that people forget is that failure is just an opportunity to do better next time, right? Because you're wiser, smarter, you know so much more, and you have what you learned, and you could do it better next time. And you know, Einstein was the one that said insanity. The definition of insanity is doing something over and over again, expecting different results. But if you know do something and you take what you learn and you try it a little bit differently, I think that the only time failure is truly acceptable is when you haven't exhausted all your options and you give up.
Okay. I like to think failure is when you don't try again.
Yeah, yeah,
You know? So
exactly.
it's really not failure, it's really lessons learned. Because
Hmm.
sometimes, you know, I've noticed that, you know, we have this thing and we do this thing and then this thing happens and then we attach this meaning to it and we use this scary word failure, you
Right.
know, and it can cripple us. So instead of thinking failure, it's lessons learned, because, you know, there can always be another outcome if we try again. And we did learn what not work, what doesn't work.
Right. And that's the other thing, right? Is people are so obsessed with the end result and what they want to get,
Mhm.
right? It's like, how do I get there? How do I get there? And what am I going to do? That they forget that, you know, that you just have to kind of love and embrace the process,
Mhm.
because the process and those failures, right? Like it's kind of reframing that failure as just something that you have to get through, right? It's you know, our mutual friend Sham, right? It's like he said, you just have to get through the fire, right? Like once you get through the fire, um, and you get burned a couple times, like that's the only way you know that what's good for you, what's bad for you. But once you get through it, like, you come out so much stronger on the other end. And and you know, and I think so many people forget that the process and the you know the journey, right, is actually what gets us there, and not just like you know the goal, so to speak, as important as it is.
I totally agree with you. The journey is what transforms us,
Yeah,
you
of
know,
course.
and builds character. So, three action steps. I like to close off with three action steps that people in the audience can take right away to get out of their way? What do you recommend that somebody could do within the next 24 hours to help them get out of their own way and start on a path of a life they want to live? You know, whether it's a first step by maybe it's a job, maybe it's a business, you know, that they want to do, but something that they want to do for themselves. How do they get out of their way? 3 action steps.
Yeah, so we touched on this like a little bit before, but I think the first thing is, I mean, we all have that one thing that we want to do that we just haven't done for whatever reason it is. Like one of my biggest things is like, I keep telling myself I'm going to start writing, but I haven't done it yet. And it's been something I've been more or less pushing off for the last 2 years, I think. It's like, oh, I'm going to start my blog, And one of the things that I did was I said, like, number one is just like, I want this, right? Like, I want to do this. So just, again, clarity and getting the intentions exactly where you want them is definitely the first thing, and just making sure that it's like, that you actually do want it, right? 2, make a list of reasons for all the reasons why you haven't started yet. And I think you'll realize like how ridiculous they are once you start taking a look at them. You know, like some people say, it's like, oh, I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough money, or this gets in the way, or this gets in the way, or, you know, I don't have any support, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like the fact that you got here, right? The fact that you got to whatever, you know, I don't know how old everyone is on this video, but the fact that you're still alive today is a testament to the fact that you've done things that you're not comfortable with, and that you've done new things, and that you have grown, right? And, you know, I think it's so ridiculous that we tell ourselves that we can't do something because we're scared, but at the same time, that discomfort and that unknown is what got us there in the first place, right? And that's how we grow, essentially. So I think, you know, just writing out the reasons and going through them each one by one and figuring out why is it really, right? And telling myself, this isn't actually a really good reason. This isn't actually a really good reason. And then I found that the third thing is have someone hold you accountable. Okay. So I did this 2 ways, actually. One, I did tell a couple friends, and they follow up with me to make sure if I did it or not. And then secondly, I take my phone, right, and I record a video, right? Like I just record a video, and I just stare right into like the lens here, right? And I just tell myself, it's like, hey, Zion, like today, you are going to get such and such done, right? Because I think that's the other trap, is that people are always so unhappy with their days, like they didn't get enough done. So if you record a video and set expectations for yourself, at least in the morning, and you review it at night, then it's kind of like, it's so different when you tell yourself something, right? When you are the one telling yourself, you know, if you've done something, so just hearing your own voice saying it, and to, you know, see yourself saying it, it's a very different feeling. So I think, you know, A, holding yourself accountable, B, memorializing it some way, and 3, having someone hold you accountable. Then you do all those things, and there's no reason, and, you know, just freaking do anything. Like the smallest thing, even if it's like, you know, if you're trying to get a new job, like start with like trying to reach out to one person every day, like just one, and, you know, make it a small, like so impossibly ridiculously small that like you can't fail, right? Like if you want to, you know, start reading, right? Like read 1 page, read for 2 minutes. Actually, that's a great thing, is like the 2-minute rule, is like just start anything for 2 minutes, right? And for whatever it might be, and just do it for 2 minutes. And I found that to be pretty helpful as well.
You know, as you talked about that, I have a teacher, Doug, who he's got this step thing that he does, and I'll share that with you, which is really interesting. And it's, you know, you're here and you want to get to your goal here, and they're like stairs to go. And you start off, it could be 2 minutes. In his world, it's 5 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And 5 minutes is like the minimum action step that you're going to take that day. Right. You know, and then he's got like, you know, maybe 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, where it's like definite overachiever territory, you know, where you take this massive action. But within this range, you know, if you do something every day, eventually
Right.
it gets you to that point. And that's really, like, I think a very powerful tip that people should take, you know, something every day. And 2 minutes, that's like really amazing. I think that's a great thing to do.
Yeah, definitely.
So, for our audience here right now, we are opening up for questions. If anyone has questions, I solicited some questions beforehand,
Sure.
before the interview, and Kate Januzzi asked, "What daily?" I mean, we kind of just went over this, but she did. What daily action steps could she take to get out of her own way?
Um, yeah, I mean, let's see. I don't know if I can come with anything new. Well, one thing that I told you that I like started doing a while ago was like start taking like cold showers in the morning.
All right.
Because like I don't know, you know, once because I think the biggest reason why you don't do it is like because like how freaking uncomfortable and cold it is. And I think if you just like, you know, to me, after I got started with that, because I was like super broke and we like never wanted to turn on our heat. So it was like when I started this cold shower challenge, it was like 3 degrees outside. And I was in my bathroom, standing in my bathroom, and I could literally see my own breath. Right. And then I did the cold shower.
Wow.
And after I got out of that, it was kind of like, you know, what else is there to be scared of? Right. Like starting off your day, like facing fear and overcoming that discomfort. Like, so, you know, so I caught myself when I was like at a networking event, I didn't want to like walk up to this person. And I was just like, what am I afraid of? Like, I just freaking like stood in like cold freaking water and, you know, and like, then I just, you know, just went for it, you know? So I think, getting yourself doing like silly things and doing like small things or whatever it is, just to get yourself out of your comfort zone regularly, is an easy way to like prime yourself to kind of like be able to apply that in your other parts of your life.
I'm going to start doing that, Zion. Cold shower first thing in the morning. I know you definitely get like it like just shocks your system and you like come alive.
Oh yeah.
But doing it in the morning, it's pretty powerful. I'm gonna try that. Joshua has another question here. He said, "What is your morning ritual for getting your day started?"
So that's one thing that I'm like getting back on track with. So on a good day, I will wake up around 5 or 6 if I get to sleep on time, which is always very, very challenging. Then I'll like drink water, right? Like easiest thing to do is just start off your day just drinking some water. And then I'll exercise. So I'll either go out for a run or I'll just, you know, exercise, whatever. And then the cold shower. And I'll do like, I have this thing called, this website called 750words.com where I just do a massive brain dump. So anything that's on my mind, I just want to like get it out of my head and, you know, start off my day fresh. Any like floating thoughts, just dump it out. Right. But in that, I'll also, you know, take the time, just like give gratitude, right? Just like, what are the things I'm thankful for even before my day starts? I think that's the hardest thing to do, is be able to give yourself time and space just to be like, yeah, it's like to think of 3 things that you're thankful for. Right. And some people are so, you know, and some people have such a hard time doing this. And don't get me wrong, like I did too. And then until I asked my one friend, and she said she did the same thing. She's like, yeah, like, you know, when I wake up, I give gratitude. Like sometimes I'm like just happy that I woke up. Like sometimes I'm happy that I can go pee. Right. And yeah, because like some people can't even do that. Right.
Yeah.
Some people can't get out of bed. Like the fact that you can do that, the fact that you're waking up in a bed in a house,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, and then, you know, yeah, the fact that like, and I find myself giving myself a lot of, you know, I'm just always thankful for the opportunity to have the time and space where I have the awareness to give myself that time, right? Because when I didn't, I knew what those repercussions were. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I'll start off my day. Oh, and then I'll meditate
Okay.
for like 15, 20 minutes. Meditate this morning and last couple of days, so it's really, really good. Because again, it's just like you time, right? Like I just need time like by myself, and
Yeah.
because I don't really, I don't really enjoy time by myself in the morning. I feel like if you just by waking up, you're like awake for 2 or 3 hours before everyone else.
Mhm.
Like it's just great way to start off.
It's a great time to turn inwards and focus on inside. Inside usually is where all the answers lie.
Yeah, exactly.
So our good friend Sham texted in a question, and he wanted to know if there was only one thing that you could pick that you're grateful for. We're just talking about gratitude,
Hmm.
that you're grateful for in your entire life. Out of all the things you've been through, what would you say that it is?
Um, I would definitely say my friends. Lately and in the past, I think that I'm very blessed to have some of the people that I have in my life.
Okay.
Um, yeah, like I said, you asked me how my personal life was. At one point, for almost a year, I didn't talk to like anyone, right? And then one day we all decided to go out to eat together. It was like four of my really, really dear friends I have, a couple of my fraternity brothers, and we just like sat down and went to eat, and it just felt like nothing changed, right? Like they treated me like a normal person. Like they make me feel so normal, right? They just treated me like a normal person. We just hung out, and it really just felt like nothing changed. And in that moment, like I realized like what I was missing out on for so long was just like that I had people to come back to, like even knowing full well like how bad, how poorly I treated some of them in the past as well. Um, and even now, just all the people that I still have in my life, right? Like they've seen me. A lot of people meet me now, and I'm such a different person now than I was in the past. But like the people that have seen me at my worst, right? Not saying that I'm at my best by any means, but have truly seen me at my worst and have stuck with me and are still with me and still in my life and still support me and still like hold that space for me when I need them. Uh, yeah, it's just yeah, and like folks like Sham, right? Like just people like I can call up and say, hey, like things suck right now, man. Like you know, um, and even if they can't relate, like it's just I just know that they'll listen, they're there for me, and that they actually care, and that um, that they're not in it just because of what they can get from me. It's really just like I feel like it's like true friendship, right?
Hmm. That's awesome. So Zion, tell me, what's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote. Other than the Newton one, which I've really liked recently, I would say that it's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. When you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah, like the amount of times that I've just like wanted to do something, and then all of a sudden like things just start lining up. Like I think that that's what I look for. I look for what are the things that start lining up. What are the things that start getting out of your way? What are the things that like had to happen in order for that one thing to happen, or that those chain reactions, right? Um, and yeah, just like the amount of luck that you kind of create for yourself, and it's really powerful. And I think a lot of people really discount like how powerful it really is just to say that you're going to do something and then just start and just do it.
I agree. So Asif is asking, what do you feel are some good strategies for getting work done when you're in a state of low energy, aside from cold showers?
Take a nap. No, seriously, like I think that's a really big one, is like actually just take a nap, even if it's like 10 minutes. Nothing too more than that, because then you'll be more tired than you were. I think like go for a walk. Like the other day, yesterday actually, or yeah, 2 days ago, I took like an hour of phone calls, and I just went for a walk because I was feeling super tired. And then I actually like kept track of it, and I was like, wow, I walked like almost 3.5 miles in an hour, right? So like just going for a walk and just like getting into a new space, new environment, just like moving, right? Because I feel like we just forget to like just get up and like stretch, right? To like, and yeah, and when all fails, just drink more coffee.
Okay. What's your favorite book?
Favorite book. I would say that my favorite book was the one that at least had the most impact on my life is probably 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Because during that time, I told you that I had a very reactive personality. So one of the first habits that they talk about is being proactive versus reactive, right? Not to empower or invest your energy into things that just don't serve you, right? And because there's things that you can control and there's things that you can't.
Okay.
And worrying, right? Like worrying about and like thinking about all these other things that could happen, should happen. We were talking about this the entire call. I think that people just need to like focus on what they can control versus like what they can't. And that's my biggest takeaway from that book. And I think, and everything else in that book, it's been pretty significant.
And who do you admire the most? You talked about Elon Musk, but who is it that you admire the most?
Yeah, like, I can give you my typical answers, which are like, the Musks of the world, like Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, and, like Bezos and Steve Jobs for all the reasons of whatever. But honestly, like after spending a lot more time with my mom recently, I would say my mom. My mom worked for 8 years, like 8 years, Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. in a nail salon, like never missing a day. And she absolutely hated it, but she did it anyways. Like even when she got sick, and even when I remember one time like her toe got run over by a car and she went into work later that day.
Wow.
Yeah, like, my mom, both my parents for that matter, have lived a pretty tough life. And I think that the fact that they are where they are right now, like that nail salon eventually became one of the top nail salons in New Jersey. And then she just recently sold it. So yeah, like she's easily one of the, yeah, like she puts me to shame when it comes to like hard work. Like I always feel like very, yeah, she's just like extremely hard worker. And it's really humbling, right? to be able to see your parents in that light once you get that perspective again, just like that appreciation, like after the fact.
Now we know why you're such a hard worker. So, we know where you get it from. Your work ethic. You had great role models. So, Zion, thank you. I want to thank you so much for your time, your generosity of your time in talking to us and offering great action steps for our viewers, to take away and implement right away. Your story is amazing, and I am sure that you will continue to climb. You are an amazing 23-year-old. I don't know many 23-year-olds who have accomplished and even think the way that you are thinking right now. And that's a pretty big transition that you've been to. There were some extreme things happening, but you're very insightful. And I just want to thank you, and I want to wish you the best. You are definitely on your way. And do you have any last words for us?
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity. Last words. Like, do epic shit.
Okay. And get out of your own way.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay.
Boom. Great way to close there.
So thank you guys for joining us. We thank you for your time, and we definitely hope that there are many lessons here to be learned and things to be taken away that we can implement into our lives. So thank you and have a great night. And according to Zion, do some epic shit. Have a good night.
Yeah, you as well. Have a great night.